In the beginning, 7 gods created the world, and from the various people that sprang up from this creation, each took one and was their god. But Alder, oldest of the gods, refused to be a god of a people. Instead, he lived apart in the Vale of Alder. But in time, he would take disciples, sorcerers who lived with him in the Vale of Alder. One day, Alder finds a stone in a creek and smooths its surface with his godly hand. But more than that, he infuses in this stone a will, and from then the orb was called the Orb of Alder. Torok, the god of the Angaroks and most beautiful of the gods, desired the Orb of Alder and struck his brother to take the orb for himself, and so the War of the Gods began. After years of conflict, Torok's armies were eventually defeated. To save himself and his people, Torok tried to use the orb to destroy his enemies, but the orb rejected him. The clashing of the opposing wills brought about the cracking of the world, and the world was devastated and its geography forever changed. It also scarred Torok himself, as half his face and body was hideously burned. Torok then fled with the orb, and for thousands of years he kept it imprisoned. But no one tried to take the orb from Torok. No one could, since the orb had changed after the cracking of the world. It could no longer be held by anyone impure of heart. But Belgariad, sorcerer and disciple of Alder, with a team of men who were finally able to steal the orb back from Torok, when a man named Brand was found to be pure of heart, and therefore could handle the orb. Torok raged at the theft and raised his armies to take back the orb, but he was defeated by the orb and Brand at Vomimbre. But Torok was only wounded. He was not killed. This is the backdrop of David Eddings' The Belgariad series. There are 5 books in the series, and they are Pawn of Prophecy, Queen of Sorcery, Magician's Gambit, Castle of Wizardry, and Enchanter's Endgame. Before I get into the review, let me explain how I actually do reviews. Personally, I'm not a fan of a single rating for an entire series or book. Many books and series have strengths and weaknesses that a single score doesn't properly reflect. So for my reviews, I use a 5-star rating system, with the 5 being the highest, over 6 categories. And they are plot, world building, characters, magic system, writing, and enjoyment. But before I begin, these videos do take a lot of time to put together. So if you like the video, it would mean a lot to me if you subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Category 1. The plot. The plot of the Belgariad series is not like some series where each book can stand on its own and there is an overarching plot that loosely connects them. Every book in the Belgariad series is tightly connected to the overarching plot, and they must be read in order to understand the events that are transpiring. And what is that plot? Well, it's fairly straightforward. The Orb of Alder is stolen. A quest is undertaken to retrieve it, and then the world needs to be saved from a dark future. This is classic fantasy. In Pawn of Prophecy, we are introduced to Garion, our POV characters and young farm boy, and learn about his day-to-day life at Falder's farm. We learn about his friends, but more importantly, his Aunt Poe, who has been raising him since his parents died. We also learn about a mysterious storyteller who visits Falder's farm with tales of the world. To Garion, he is Mr. Wolf. To the reader, he is definitely more than that, especially once he informs Aunt Poe that the Orb of Alder has been stolen and that they need to retrieve it. And so, Garion is swept into a grand quest to retrieve the orb as he has to follow his Aunt Poe. It is a quest that will not only introduce Garion to the wide world, but to companions who will form a fellowship that will be with him throughout. In Queen of Sorcery, Garion's fellowship to retrieve the Orb of Alder continues to grow as more companions join. The quest to retrieve the orb continues to take them to various different parts of the world. In this book, there are 2 main locations that they visit. One is the Tonedrian Empire, where we get to meet Sinetra, the fiery princess, and see her join Garion's fellowship, and also Nessa, where Garion comes face to face with the beautiful Queen Silmistra and her desires. We also learn that Garion, unsurprisingly, has powers of his own, and that fate itself will not be a bystander to the unfolding events. In Magician's Gambit, Garion and his fellowship finally track the orb to its location, and without spoiling too much, a great battle ensues between several of the characters. In the end, the orb is finally retrieved by Garion and his fellowship. Now, you may be thinking, they retrieved the orb in book 3. Aren't there, 2 more books in the series? Yes, because while the retrieval of the orb has been the focus of the series up to this point, we learned that it's just a step on a stairway. And at this point, the series shifts to the prophecies that will determine the fate of the world. So, there are two competing prophecies that will determine the fate of the world. Now, what each prophecy actually entails is never actually explained to the reader, but it can be boiled down to one prophecy will lead to a happy ending and the other a bad ending. Yeah, it's classic fantasy, people. Just go with it. Anyway, in Castle of Wizardry, Garion and his fellowship must now focus on making sure that the good prophecy comes to pass. In doing so, we learn more about Garion's ultimate role in ensuring that the good prophecy takes place. But more importantly, Garion, after several books of just following, is finally allowed to grow as a character and make impactful decisions. One of those decisions will take him on the path to facing the god Torok. As was explained in my opening to this review, the god Torok never died after his defeat at Vomimbre. He was wounded and bedridden, but he has been stirring throughout the events of this series, and Garion must confront Torok to ensure that the good prophecy comes to pass. Enchanter's Endgame details that confrontations and the events surrounding it. So what's my rating? 3 stars out of 5. The best word I can use to describe this plot is, predictable. As the reader, I always knew how the quest to retrieve the orb would pan out, and which of the two prophecies would end up winning in the end. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, because the journey can be just as enjoyable as arriving at the destination. Well, maybe not in every case, because let me tell you, when I'm on a plane to Vegas and I'm just sitting in a flying tin can, all I'm wishing for is a tech company to finally just create a teleporter so I can just teleport there. Teleporters aside, the issue with this series is Deus Ex Machina. It's a literary trope that I know a lot of readers roll their eyes when they see it transpiring on the page, and while I'm not necessarily one of those readers, it does start to grate on my nerves if it's overused, and I feel like that's what happens here. Again, in an effort to keep this as spoiler-light as possible, Garion is presented with many interesting obstacles throughout the series that he has to overcome. His solution? Well, on some of these occasions, because yes, there is more than one, he gets magically possessed and everything gets solved by some other entity. Look, I'm a generous guy. I can let you get away with that sort of thing maybe once in this series, but multiple times? Yeah, that's not gonna happen. The problem with relying on things like that, it robs moments of growth for Garion. Instead of letting the character resolve the problem with his own intellect and ingenuity and letting them grow, he at times becomes a passenger to his own series and it doesn't feel great. But what saves this series from a 2-star review is the straightforwardness of the plot. It's not overly complicated. You understand the dangers. The character's motivations make sense, and the resolution doesn't smack you on the back of the head straight out of the shadows. Category 2, World Building. 4 stars out of 5. Eddings' world is interesting. The tale of the gods that sets the stage for the series is thoughtful and helps the reader to understand the geopolitical state of the world as presented to us. Basically, each of the people of the world are a reflection of the god that they worshipped, and they all hate the people who worship Torok, who hates them all back in kind. More than that, the various people are different. Senders are known for their conservatism, Toldarians are known more for their military discipline and shrewd politicking, the Angaroks are known for their brutality, the Membrates of the Arens are known for their cavalry prowess and way of speech. Yeah, they talk like they're in a Shakespearean play with thou and thee. And there are non-humans as well. We visit forest-dwelling dryads and talking otters called fenlings. There's so much variety that it makes the world feel authentic. Category 3. The characters. Rating first, 3 stars out of 5. So, there's really only 2 POV characters throughout the series, and they are Garion and Sinedra, and 90% of the series is told through Garion's perspective. So basically, you're in Garion's head for most of the time, and it's not the worst of places to be. Garion's a simple character with a good heart, but he's not perfect. He has his jealousies, and there's a lot he doesn't understand, but he's willing to learn and react realistically to the events around him. One such moment is when he first uses his powers to harm someone and his reaction to it afterward. Knowing who Garion is from our time with him at Falder's farm made it very believable. The main issue though that I have with Garion is that at times he feels like a passenger in a series that is very much about him. Too many times he just gets bossed around or just disappears into the background of scenes, which is odd since he is the POV character. As for our other POV character, Sinedra, I like her. She's been a princess her whole life, and she absolutely acts like one. There's none of that weighty understanding and profound intelligence. She is a damn brat, and it's refreshing to actually read it. But she grows in the series. As responsibilities are placed on her shoulders, we see her rise to the occasion organically. As for the other characters that we're introduced to and spend time with through either Garen or Sinedra, they're all part of the fellowship to recover the Orb of Alder. And they are Mr. Wolf, the storyteller, Aunt Polgara, who's been taking care of Garion since he was a child, Silk, a Drazian spy, Barak, a Sharik Earl, Drunic, a blacksmith that accompanies Garion, Mr. Wolf, and Aunt Polgara when they first set out from Falder's farm, Mandaloran, an Arend nobleman, Lendoran, a son of a baron in Arend, Relg, a priest of Olgol, Taiba, a Marag slave, and Heder, an Olgar horseman. Even though none of those characters are POV characters, from Garen we learn about their personal struggles, and what's great is that not all of them have a happy ending. Not all of their personal struggles are resolved by the end of the series in a way where everyone lives happily ever after. Now, my review so far has generally been positive. So why only the 3 stars? Well, it comes down to personal taste. While all the characters feel authentic, there's nothing really memorable about any of them for me. For example, if you ask me a year from now, hey, do you remember that time when Relg saved Silk? I am fairly confident I won't know what series you're talking about. And that, to me, is a problem. Category 4. The magic system. 4 stars out of 5. The system of magic in Eddings' world is both simple and elegant. It revolves around the concept of will and the word. In this world, there are certain individuals that can manipulate the world around them. Basically sorcerers. To manipulate the world, a sorcerer has to summon their will on the thing that they want to manipulate, and then with a word can make that thing happen. For example, if a sorcerer wanted to freeze water, they would have to focus their will on the freezing of water and then say freeze to make the water freeze. What a sorcerer can do is only limited by their imagination and energy. For instance, bringing someone back from the dead is nearly impossible since it requires too much energy for anyone's will. Also, the universe has forbidden a sorcerer from unmaking anything. It's a simple system that allows for a lot of complexity as seen throughout the series. Category 5. The writing. 2 stars out of 5. Firstly, Eddings' prose is easy to read and his pace keeps the plot moving. But there are issues. One is the repetition. In their pursuit of the orb, Garen and his companions have to pass through cities and villages where they stop at inns. And this happens over and over and it starts to get tiresome by the 4th time. 2. Some of the interactions between the characters are not exactly organic. Without spoiling anything, one of the characters introduces themselves to another character by basically attacking them. Then, a few chapters later, the 2 characters are basically best friends, and then one of them divulges some of their biggest secrets to the other. At least buy me dinner before asking me for my hand in marriage. It feels super rushed, but it has to be because the writer wanted a certain event to happen, so he needed to force this relationship to happen to do so. 3. Their reliance on Deus Ex Machina. I explained it before, so I won't go into too much detail, but essentially, the author relies too heavily on an improbable solution to interesting problems in the book and that robs certain characters of their growth. 4. Telling and not showing. This is a pretty bad issue that happens routinely in this series. 1. We get several sections of info dumps where a character asks a question for the sole purpose of allowing another character to go into a lengthy explanation suited only for the reader. And 2. Are the speeches. At one point in the series, a character is forced to give speeches to convince people to do a thing that they may really not want to do. But instead of actually showing us the reader what they said, he basically writes, X character gave an impassioned speech, and everyone was convinced. My reaction to that was literally, really? That's what we're going to do here. And 5, and probably my biggest issue with this series as a whole, is free will. There are 2 major themes in this series. One is love, and the other is free will. Love, I feel, is handled really well. The burgeoning love between certain characters feels true, the barriers preventing others from obtaining it feels heart-wrenching, and the love forever lost by others feels painful. But free will, the way it's handled in this series, makes everything feel pointless in a way. We're told that certain things are supposed to happen because the prophecy demands it. This is bad for two reasons. One, all the obstacles placed before Garen and his fellowship lose their significance because the end result is fixed. And two, I felt like it stunted the growth in characters like Garen. Like I said many times before, Garen at times feels like a passenger in a series about him. His free will is often stifled because he's always following the instructions from others. And worse, his romantic relationship suffers from this. He's in love with a girl, but because he's destined to marry this girl via prophecy, the question becomes, does he willingly love this girl, or is he being forced to love her because the prophecy said so? It's a question with no easy answer, and I think the series suffers from that. Category 6, enjoyment. This one is tough because it comes down to preference. If you're a younger person who has grown up in a world of grimdark fantasy and prefers them, I think you might hate this series. This is classic fantasy. The good and bad guys are clearly defined and the fate of the world hangs in the balance. If you grew up on series like The Lord of the Rings, then this series will strike a chord with you and I think you'll really enjoy it. Personally, I sit on the fence that separates the two, and I'm not moving. Because of that, I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 5. I have no issues with classic fantasies, and some of my favorite books are in fact classics. But having read more modern fantasy of late, my tastes have been corrupted, I guess. It's because of that I roll my eyes when I see the power of love conquers all. But similarly, it's why I can respect the character doing the right thing because it is the right thing. So that's my review of the Belgariad series. I hope it helps you decide whether it's a series you want to invest in or not. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. And with that, I'll see you all in the next one.